break between the two really important. It's wonderful to hear that. I'm so looking forward to what Katie has to say. I want to just talk for a few minutes about where we are and about, first of all, why I really want Columbia to divest in the biggest way. What you just saw from Professor Rainbow is emblematic of the amazing work that's gone on at this place over the last 30 or 40 years in helping us understand what's going on. I was extremely happy when Edinburgh College divested in Scotland. And the reason was that it was at Edinburgh that Joseph Black, the chemist, discovered carbon dioxide 200 years ago. So for symbolic reasons, it's very important. You could make the argument that this corner of Manhattan up here in Columbia is as good a site as any to talk about the place where we kind of discovered climate change, or at least understood it in its full dimensions. Okay, and there's kind of grand old men of this institution, people like Wally Brooker, and Jim Hansen, working out of his office at 110th and Broadway, really provided humanity with the most profound and powerful warning that we've ever gotten about if there's a Paul Revere of climate change, if there's a person who helped us, gave us the warning that we needed, it was Jim, working in collaboration with other people at Columbia and at NASA. So having Columbia divest would be really, really important. It would also be really important because here we are, up on Morningside Heights, up above Harlem, in a place where the possibilities for reinvestment are so enormous, and the possibilities for just the kind of work that should and could be done with some small portion of that money are profound. The slides I was going to show here someplace. I'm very bad at this sort of thing. Anything electronic is. Here's the clicker, right? All right, let's see if it. I'm just going to. These are completely. You said there were 20,000 demonstrations we've done around the world. Mostly just random slides. And one of the things I just want you to see as I talk. These are your brothers and sisters around the world engaged in this work. Okay. And one of the things that's important to remind ourselves, since we're an elite institution here with a lot of money, one of the things to remind ourselves all the time is that people's stereotype of who environmentalists are is wrong. It's not mostly rich white people. Most of the people we work with around the world, and most of the people who lead this fight, are poor, black, brown, Asian, and young. Because that's what the vast majority of the world is made up of. And oddly enough, they're as concerned about the future as absolutely anybody else, maybe more so because the future presses down hard on you when you're in these places. You saw that picture from Maldives before, in the Maldives, a place where I spent a lot of time. Well, that's the Student Government Association in the Maldives holding their meeting in a lagoon to demonstrate their existential problem. Their place isn't going to exist. People have been there for 5,000 years, continuous habitation, but they're probably not going to be there unless we get very serious very fast before this century is over. So I show you these just to give you, well, but just to give you some sense of all the people around the world who are working on this problem. Some of the work that we're doing is this kind of purely educational work in places that didn't know about climate change or weren't paying that much attention, including large parts of the United States. Some of it's goes beyond educational to. I should stop there and just say that's it. We're in a law school and we've been listening to scientists. It's always important to have the arts involved as well in this work. That's when we set up a satellite one weekend to do this great globe-scale art project. That's a dry riverbed in Santa Fe. And went over 3,000 people put blue blankets up overhead just to bring the river back to life for an image. We we'd like to just keep doing this kind of education. We would have. And if we had 50 or 60 or 70 years, that's just what we would have done forever, you know? Because that's how change happens best. People learn. We don't have 50, 60, 70 years. As you've heard, the planet is coming apart in very short order. We really had to start 50 years ago, or 25, to have gotten it under any kind of control, and we did. So now we're in a kind of desperate battle. So along with education, we do confrontation. These are a few pictures from the beginning of the, what we might call the defensive phase of the climate movement. 4 years ago in Washington, at the beginning of the operations against the Keystone Pipeline, which turned into the largest civil disobedience action about anything in this country in 30 years. Thousands of people went to jail, and that was enough to get things kind of going around the world. And you know, now we're at the point where, well, where a bunch of things have happened. That Keystone Pipeline is still not approved, and I think we're getting closer all the time to getting it, the kibosh put on it. It was a remarkable moment last week when Hillary Clinton announced that how she had switched from being in favor of it to being opposed to it. Not, I think, because she reevaluated the science. I think because the work that y'all did made it clear to her that she couldn't get the Democratic nomination for president if she wasn't on board. We've kept 800,000 barrels a day of the dirtiest oil on earth in the ground for 4 years. And we've screwed up all of us working together, the financing plans for the tar sands. There was a story today in the trade press saying that as far as the Canadians can tell, unless they can somehow get a pipeline built, unless they can elect Donald Trump, who's promised to build it right away, the era of, as they put it, mega projects and the tar sands is over. They'll never have the billions of dollars they want to triple and quadruple the size of their facility. That, even better, that spirit spread everywhere, so that every new fossil fuel project is now being opposed and opposed strongly. People going to jail everywhere. What one gas executive last year called the Keystoneization of every project that we knew about. And we're winning many of these too. Not all of them by any means, but many of them. It was cause for great celebration last month when indigenous people and activists, and climate scientists in Australia and their allies around the world were able to, we think, pretty much block and end the plans for what would have been the largest coal mine in the world in the Galilee Valley of Australia. That alone would have been enough to do about, that one mine would have put enough carbon in the atmosphere to fill up about 10% of the carbon budget between us and 2 degrees, like the one. Okay? Just as you know, 2 days ago, Shell Oil announced that they were pulling out of the Arctic and they weren't going to drill there. That was a wonderful, wonderful victory. They said it was because they weren't finding enough oil. But in fact, as now reporters are finding out and talking to people in the company, it was entirely because the reputational damage that they were taking from activists around the country and around the world was just too much. Okay? So that defensive phase of the movement's beginning to go pretty well, and it's beautiful to see. That means that we still have to play offense. We have to take on this industry as best we can, because believe me, they're taking us on all the time. That's a billboard that went up a couple of years ago from the Heartland Institute. They've gotten a lot of money from people like Exxon. And it was designed to show that climate scientists were serial killers. That was basically the emotional point it was trying to make. Okay? In fact, it makes no sense. It's like saying, you know, Hitler believes in gravity. You know, the emotional point it was trying to make is clear. You know, Professor Raymond is a serial killer. That's the message it was trying to get across. We were happy because that day, it just so happened, the day that those went up, we'd scheduled this big day of action around the world. What we were telling people to do was that we could connect the dots, all the places that were already feeling the sting of climate change. And there were so many, you know, from underwater on the coral reefs to the Congo River, which was drying up, drought in every corner of the world, sea level rise. Some places the problem's slightly less, you know, life-threatening, but still, like nature. Just, you know, and boreal forest up in Siberia. We're now seeing routinely forest fires 3, 4, 5 degrees of latitude north of where we've ever seen them because it's so hot and dry. And of course, in another one of these, truly vicious feedback loops, it puts soot all over the ice sheet in Greenland and elsewhere, and accelerates their melt, and puts carbon in the air, on and on. There's people leaving their home already in Micronesia because the sea levels began to rise. Other places, the opposite problem. That top red balloon is where the level of the Dead Sea was 40 years ago. Drought everywhere, and in the places where there's not drought, flood, because warm air holds more water vapor than cold. We're going to see a little sense of this in the coming week as Hurricane Joaquin crosses the warmest water that's ever been recorded in the part of the world as it comes up the East Coast. We already see apparently pretty much record levels of moisture in the atmosphere, sort of ahead of it in the rain we're going to see the next couple of days. This is the kind of thing that happens now. Well, in 2010 it happened in Pakistan. So much rain that the Indus River covered about a quarter of the country. 20 million people were out of their homes. It's as if everybody from Baltimore to Boston had to evacuate when Hurricane Sandy came through. You can tell, I think, by looking at them, that it's unlikely they played a huge role in causing the problem that we're now experiencing. I took those in because I'm homesick, but that's the piles of sand left over from Hurricane Irene in Vermont 3 years ago. But the same thing all over the world. And on that day, that was maybe the picture that got to me the most. And only because it's not like, it's just some street in Haiti that's been turned into a dirty river by Lorraine. Which is what the science is. Your actions affect me. Okay? Which is entirely true. More people died from Sandy in Haiti than died in New York. And there's still a cholera outbreak underway. It's wait. But your actions affect me, but not vice versa. There's really not much that anybody in Haiti at this point can do to affect the outcome of this story beyond appeal to us. They can't use less fossil fuel. They basically use none now. And they have no access to, they can't get on the train and be outside the most important office in the free world, as we used to say, in Washington in a matter of hours. They can't go down to Wall Street. The biggest pot of money in Haiti is a tiny fraction of Colombia's endowment. We have access to all those tools, all that leverage, and that's why it's incumbent upon us, also because we caused so much of the problem, to put it to work. And that's what this divestment thing has been about. I just want to give you this sort of briefest update, because it's, again, pretty good news. I mean, when we started 3 years ago, it was me, writing in Rolling Stone, and it wasn't even on, it was Justin Bieber was on the cover. But it became a widely shared article, and it helped launch this, we did this Do the Math tour around the United States, including in New York, and we were so glad in the middle of that, and very end of 2012, when the very first college in the world divested, a tiny little school up in Maine called Unity College, that divested its $13 million endowment. Okay? And that was fantastic. And it got it cool. And then, sort of to our surprise, lots of people, not just colleges, but religious denominations, Episcopalians, the Unitarians, whoever began divesting, whole cities, Seattle, San Francisco. By this time last year, September of last year, uptown at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, we had the next great moment of this whole thing, which came when the Rockefeller family announced that they were divesting their holdings in coal and oil and gas and beginning to reinvest in community projects instead. And that was a great moment because it was so symbolic. This was the first fossil fuel fortune, the original oil fortune. And it was spectacular to see. Last September, we had a big press conference with the Rockefellers. At that point, the total portfolios divested added up to $50 billion. We were really happy with that. We mean, it was already by far the fastest growing, largest divestment campaign ever. Bigger and faster than the one that had been our inspiration, which was about apartheid in South Africa a generation ago. But this year it's just accelerated again in a whole other dimension. And when we had a press conference last week, the number had gone from $50 billion in a year to $2.6 trillion worth of endowments and portfolios we began to divest. And now it's things like the California pension funds and the California teachers funds, two of the largest pension, 20 largest pension funds on earth. It's the largest insurance company in France. It's Norway's sovereign wealth fund, the biggest pool of investment capital on earth. On and on and on. And more good news coming all the time. I mean, yesterday, Mayor de Blasio said he was calling on New York to begin divesting its city pension funds and things. This is really important. It's turned out to be more important than we thought it was when we launched it. It's done two things. One, it's taken this piece of information that this campaign was based on, the fact that they is 5 times as much, as we said, 5 times as much carbon in the ground as we can hope to safely burn. It's taken that and turned it from something that people who are reading Rolling Stone knew about to something that's now the conventional wisdom from the World Bank and Deutsche Bank. Yesterday, the governor of the Bank of England, which to me sounds like this sort of Dickensian kind of title and whatever you can get, you know. The governor of the Bank of England went to Lloyd's of London, the most oldest insurance company in the world, and standing there he gave a long speech to all the assembled insurance brokers saying that they had huge exposure to carbon, as he put it, that was literally unburnable, that was going to be stranded assets, and they better get the hell out of it now. Okay? And it was really powerful to see how far this has gone, and to see something that we really hadn't even hardly expected. We didn't think we'd be able to really make a kind of bottom line difference. We thought it was mostly political and symbolic, and that would be important enough in breaking the political power of the fossil fuel industry. But we've reached the point where it's really begun to cause them deep financial trouble too. Peabody Coal, the biggest coal miner in the world, put in its annual report this year, because apparently their lawyers told them they had to, that the divestment campaign was now making it directly impacting their share price and making it difficult for them to raise capital. And the same around the world and around the industry. So the things that you're doing and the pressure that you're putting on is amazing. And the work that you're doing long before Columbia divests is a huge part of this effort, especially since you're in New York and in the kind of media and financial capital of the world. The argument that you keep making gets magnified and magnified. One of the things we need to think about all the time is that climate change isn't the only reason that we need to be getting off fossil fuel and fast. This stuff is bad news in so many ways, and we've come to recognize that even more in the last few years. Air quality comes in places that are burning too much fossil fuel, or that are burning it in ways where people are overexposed to it. And some of those places are in New York. The air quality and the effect on people directly is astonishing. Delhi is probably the best example of this right now. Okay, I was there in the fall. The particulate matter is so enormously high that they think now half the children in Delhi, 2.5 million children of the 5 million children in that city, have irreversible lung damage. The shading of the sun by this cloud of particulate matter is enough that it's dramatically suppressing crop yields. The same thing in a less dramatic but equally insidious form in the Bronx, in other places in New York City, all over. Okay? All of which we should keep in mind is, at this point, unnecessary. The other thing that's happened in the last 5 years that's also good news, or at least very potentially good news, is we really have crossed the point where we now understand what comes next and how relatively easy, or at least possible, it is to make that step. In the last 6 years, the price of a solar panel has dropped 75%. That's probably the most important. That and the rising amount of CO2 in the atmosphere are probably the two most important numbers on Earth, because the one spells the possibility of dealing with the other, or at least beginning to. A massive, rapid transformation to renewable energy, the kind of thing that would be unleashed if we took even a small percentage of what we now have invested in fossil fuel and used it to reinvest in transition to something else. That would produce endlessly cleaner air. It would begin to break that horrible curve that you saw of rising CO2 levels. And not least, it would begin to redistribute power in this country and in this world in almost literal ways. Okay? One of the reasons that we're in the endless hole that we are is because of who holds power. The Koch brothers, taken together the richest man in the world, the two of them, have announced that they will spend $900 million on the next election. That's more money than the Republican Party or the Democratic Party will spend on the next election. The Koch brothers are part of it too. The Koch brothers are also the largest leaseholders in the tar sands in Canada. The reason they want to spend that money is to make sure they can keep pouring carbon into the atmosphere and sulfur and nitrogen into the air that people breathe, because that's what made them the richest people in the world. In a world where we're running instead of solar panels on 100 million roofs, their business begins to dwindle and decline, and our democracy begins to get a little healthier. All this to say, just that the work that you're doing is magnificently important. And there couldn't be a place where it would be more important than quantity. I've told you the scientific reasons why it's so important, but it's also psychological reasons. Okay? This city is the headquarters of finance in the world. That's basically what New York City produces, is capital for the rest of the world to go and do things. And if we're able to send the message here that we don't want anymore to be doing this particular thing, it will echo extremely loudly. So there's every reason for Columbia to be taking the lead here. And I just can't tell you how grateful I am for your work. Even before you win, it's been an enormous job. And when you win, it will be even more powerful, and then we will have a big party and not talk about any of this depressing stuff at all. Thank you guys so much.